stage. Everyone you're going to be seeing this evening. We have Jonathan Cobb working the lights and sound. Working the keys and performing everyone is Dylan Emery. There is Drew Levy. Leslie Ann Alderson. Yes, Alan Marriott. To explain to the listeners at home precisely what's going to happen is Drew Levy.
All right. We're going to tell a story for you now, but we're going to take turns telling it, depending on who's being pointed at the time, and I'll be pointing at them. But we're going to tell a story, and it's going to be a beautiful story. The first thing we need to get is a title for the story. So if I could get a noun, which is a thing, place, or person. Noun from anybody in the audience. Which is
Cherry.
Sorry?
Cherry.
Cherry. Okay, that's good. And some sort of modifier word, like an adverb, or in this case an adjective, which would describe the cherry.
Scientific.
The scientific cherry. Right on. This is going up to the internet. Self-selecting science audience, because you can only get the internet at universities. Okay, so the story's going to be the scientific cherry. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to point at people. I'm going to randomly point at people, and they're going to have to carry on the story, tell the story. And as I change the pointing person at, of which.
This is for the English students at university.
This is why
grammatically it's for the Germans.
Yes, this is why I point. They will carry on the story at the moment that it dropped off. They've got to pick it up. So, say I'm pointing at you and you're talking.
Blah 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 blah.
That's freaking helpful.
And blah blah blah.
Yes, so she picked it up. Now. If at any point they drop if they repeat the last word they heard, they go, somebody says and then somebody goes and, so they repeat it, you gotta go die. And if they garble their words, you gotta go die. And if they go you gotta go die. Okay, so you get the idea. So let's all practice that. So on the count of 3, just shout out die in your most evil voice. So 1, 2, 3, die!
Oh my God!
I think the microphone's got that.
Alright, so without any further ado, we're going to start off Chapter 1 of The Scientific Cherry.
Inside the shop was a cherry that formed a perfect sphere. Had you calculated its depth with a pi or its volume, you would have found that it was a perfect
shape that was called a circle. Circles were usually fruit.
Die!
Whoa! Harsh. I think we've got to die there. Okay, well, should we swap out?
It's too late.
It's too late now.
No, I'm going.
Now listen.
No.
All right, I'll keep. Oh yes. Okay, so.
It's because I'm a woman, isn't it? Yeah, it's all right.
Chapter 2 of The Scientific Cherry.
The circle had turned at once into an enormous sphere made of fruit. It was bananas on the outside, but cherry on the inside.
And Jerry knew that if he ate it, he would pop his
scientific cherry and become a scientist of such knowledge
and worth that he would begin to
rule the world through his scientific prowess
and his table of logarithms, which he would use as a
device to calculate more
mathematical equations than
anyone had calculated prior to Mr.
Simpson, the man who... At that moment, in another laboratory, Dennis the Weaver realized that he could only divide his pies into 2 by taking a knife and slashing the pie in
half.
This made him... His knife was not sharp
enough to actually finish the job, so
he decided that he would use the
knife in another way and
kill the scientist next door
to him.
The man who he hated. The man who
he hated
him
more than
anyone had hated
before anyone had seen him, and he was a very hate
knife.
Oh, it's
Professor Simpson
realized that he needed really to complete the circle a banana of
good worth would be the device that he could use. He took the skin off and threw it
to the lions who lived next door.
And used themselves as devices to entice
the other scientists in to join
them and be eaten in one gulp. At that moment, the pie burst open. The cherries flew against the roof, for they had no gravity. The pie was itself an anti-gravity device which Einstein himself measured with